that definitely threw a little bit of cold water on just accepting the state standards carte blanche, and we wanted to be sure that we didn't have North Haven going on.
Well, Mars Hill hit the DEP quite hard.
Right, so I don't know why we would want to accept the state standards.
No, I didn't think that was a good alternative.
Oh, okay, I'm just checking.
No,
I thought you were trying to
No,
endorse.
I'm just saying.
Okay,
He
just checking.
His first impression, though, of what you guys had written was, whoa, this is too complex for you guys to,
I know, you wrote it.
me? No, we copied it. We didn't write it, we copied
Well, same thing.
it. Yeah.
You're the one that brought it into the meetings and said, let's do this.
No,
But anyway,
no.
no, I know, believe me, I do have, even though I disagree with you on some things, I definitely have more appreciation for what you did.
Thank you, bye. Yes.
Now that I've been sitting home trying to put everybody's stuff together for this, so believe me, I definitely appreciate all the time and hours that you spent doing it the first time through. So,
Why do you think I quit when it was done?
so Jessica, you want to go, or you,
You know,
wait, she's still going.
You know, there were, like you said.
Paul, want to come up again? Rick likes to have your photogenic presence.
Go up front, that was the rules.
Oh, is that why? I thought you couldn't hear me.
No, I can't turn the camera that far around.
You know, he said you need to work on a table. That would have been my feeling from my looking at it, that you needed to work on the table. So that's where I think that some of the simplification can come in. But in order to do that, you have to put a higher priority on simplifying than you do on being accommodating to developers. And that's the bottom line right there. If you want, Hessler speaks from his experience of defending and standing for developers. And he suggests to you that you may be having some burdensome requirements in here. Burdensome for who? Not for the people of the citizens of the town, not necessarily for you guys, but I think it would be burdensome for you, but burdensome for the developer. Where's the sense of balance here? Where's looking out for the people of the town? Because Hessler, we listened to you in January and February saying, Hessler and everybody else says, well, maybe it's that really low frequency, maybe it's the infrasound that's making people sick, so we really need to buckle down and have a better low frequency standard. And now Hessler says, you don't have to worry about low frequency, throw out the low frequency standard, and you say, well, I think maybe we better throw out the low frequency standard. You have to find your line and make a good, solid rationale for that. And I think you guys are up against a time frame again, just as we've been in the past. You've got too many changes to make in too short a time.
No, last time we had a public hearing 3 days before the deadline, so I think we got a little bit more time this time.
You know, you guys had, when we finished the ordinance in 2010, it really wasn't vetted good. There was a moratorium vote coming. People went out and said, no, we don't need a moratorium, we're solid, we got it solid. And as soon as we got it voted in, we started finding the problems with it. You need to take the time to vet this before you put it out for a vote. And I think you're crazy to put it up and down, the whole thing or nothing. I think that's crazy.
I don't see any other way to do it, Paul, because everything is so intertwined, because the procedures weren't good in the other ordinance, so we had to change the procedures around.
Divide it up.
It can't be divided up.
Yeah, the articles 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, those don't need to be tied into wind turbine noise.
Well, that's your opinion, we thank you for your opinion.
You know, changing, taking out.
Okay, so hang on a second, Paul, just to get a sense for this. So what you would be endorsing, just so we can understand what you're saying to don't do anything to the wind, is that what you're saying?
Don't do anything then?
To the wind part?
No, I'm saying take that out. Don't tie the other.
Well, what would you recommend that we do with the wind part in June?
I don't know, you guys have totally confused me. I've come to every meeting and it's made me more confused than when I started.
Well, I'm actually less confused, but anyway.
Yeah, that could have happened anyway. But anyway, no, I'm not saying do this, don't do that. I'm saying separate them out.
Well, okay, but then what would be the alternatives then? What would be the alternatives? If we separate them out, how would you deal, okay, so let's just go 1 through 5, okay? So what do you do with 6, 7, 8, 9, and then what do you do, what in particular, what do you do with 14? I'd be curious.
I think you could separate, I've taken the changes that you have, Articles 1 through 5 and 7. I've printed out what the ordinance says now and what you're proposing it should say. And that covers 7.5 pages. You could put that in the office tomorrow and people could look at that and give you feedback and say yay or nay. Go ahead with that or something. Waiting until the middle of May, when it's too late to change any of that, one little screw up that comes out in the middle of May throws the whole thing in the ash can.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, then, that's what happened before.
That's when you make
wanna go with that
amendments.
Even though you know it has a problem, then that's what happens. If you put all your eggs in that basket,
Right, so what do you do with chapter 14?
with chapter 14, I would at least take the marijuana section out and place that on the ballot as a separate thing. You could, I don't know, it's probably 5, 6 pages. Put a
No, it's
copy,
not even that long. It's not very, it's pretty short.
put a copy of that over in the office so people can see what you're adding. And that needs to be one article. Adopt the addition of the marijuana provisions.
Well, this is the thing about that. The only reason that that's in there, for example, is not because
You
we're,
have to change,
No?
oh, okay, you had your hand out. Okay.
Yep.
Sorry.
okay, we're not proposing, the whole point of that is not because we're proposing to endorse having a marijuana clinic in town. The point of that is to not have somebody come in here and decide that Clifton would be a great place for a marijuana clinic and have no rules whatsoever, and then, go through what we went through with Pisgah Mountain and have half the town in uproar and have a moratorium, okay, and then have rules made
Right.
about a marijuana facility, in the middle of everything else. So what we actually have is, the ordinance is almost verbatim out of the city of Brewer, where they actually have, drug treatment program clinics, and so we know that it actually already works. And this is really just protecting us from having a giant
I know,
Yes.
I know, I approached you, I said, I'd like to see the marijuana one. I gave you the Hamden one. The Brewer one has one provision that I would rather have the Hamden one, but I would vote for that. I think there are a lot of people that would vote for one thing in here, but might not want to vote for everything in there. One up or down vote on it.
Well, I know, but then what do you do with the stuff that's messed up in Article 14?
You put that into one article. You do
Okay, well then what do you put out as an alternative?
as an alternative.
Right, because this definitely doesn't work. Oh, I'm gonna get to you.
No,
It
you-
definitely doesn't work.
No, you.
What's in Article 14.8 does not work
I'm not saying
today.
that you don't do everything that you want. I'm saying divide it up into more than one article, not up and down, yay or nay on the whole thing. You're holding marijuana clinics hostage, you're holding reasonable changes to the submission requirements in Article 6 hostage.
It's funny how she
What
changes
you're
her
telling,
mind.
this is what you're telling me now. This is what I just heard from you. Let's talk about, we talked about the flip. This is the flip. This is what you're telling me. If you don't separate that out, I'm gonna hold all these
No,
good
I'm
things
not saying-
hostage for the wind.
No.
That's what I just heard from you.
No, I'm saying how other people will look at it.
Well, that's how you're looking at it.
No,
It's not.
I'm looking at it as,
That's what I hear from you.
I'm looking at it as, I'd be very, very doubtful if I could go in there and vote yes on doing the whole thing.
Only because of 14.8, right?
No,
Okay, what else?
there are a number of things that I would like to have an individual vote on in there.
Well, then how can we integrate it?
There are some that could be, yes. It
Well,
would still- I mean,
then by all means, because you come to most of the meetings, I think you missed like one snow night, because you had the best attendance of anybody, you and Jessica both. Why, and we've definitely taken your suggestions. If you go back and you look at those comments, you made suggestions, and we actually changed stuff back. In a couple articles, you said, I don't think it would be a good idea if you change that. And we looked it over, and we said, yeah, you're right, and we changed it back to the way it was. So we've definitely been receptive to what you wrote. But if you have changes in other areas, other than this wind that we're having a discussion about, because you said there's a number of areas, then by all means, publish it, because we've definitely been open to what you've had to say.
I mean, there's so many hours in a day. I mean, you have to go back and look at the original, none of which you have paper copies of. You gotta go and look up and then trace that to
You can get a paper copy of the original over here in the town hall. We have the originals right there, for the original, and it's online too.
I know, that's what I'm saying. If you go online, you gotta go back and forth, and a lot of stuff has been moved, so you can't go directly back and forth. The section where it was in the original, in the proposed, is in a different article.
I see your hand,
And
you
none
don't
of
have to
them-
get tired.
And none of them have been finalized yet, so you don't know. Should I spend 2 hours trying to understand this, and then I go in tonight and they're gonna take it away? So.
Well,
why
if you
should-
write about it, then, well, we may or may not take it away. You might say to change it, and we'll change it. I mean, like I said, we've taken a number of your suggestions, and, you know, to your credit, you've gone through and said, I think this is a good idea too, and we've liked that too.
Well, one of the things you changed at my suggestion was that you had written something that was contrary to state statute. Now, I'm not gonna stand here and tell you that I know everything in that thing, in that ordinance, and be able to tell you, oh, here you got another contrary to state statute thing.
Well, yeah, but no,
You don't
you
know.
pointed it out and we changed it.
You know, in 2011, we did it at a town meeting. I'm not saying you have to do that. And we had like 15 articles.
I don't think it was that many. I think it was just a couple little changes. I think there were like 3.
There were a number, and we did them at town meeting. People could ask a question and then vote. I'm not saying you have to do that. I'm just saying, if people don't know, they're not gonna know how to vote. And if you say up or down, then it makes it an issue over wind turbines. It doesn't make it an issue over whether you want to improve the ordinance. It makes it an issue over whether you
Well, wind
want-
turbines are already allowed. And so basically where it is now is the next person that comes into town that wants to put a wind turbine in, just one, okay? Just one big wind turbine, they can come and then sue us because the ordinance is such a disaster.
All you needed was, you know, but the judge said you couldn't give the waiver. All you needed was to change in a small way so that you would not run into that problem with isocontour maps again. That's all you needed to change. You don't need to redo the whole ordinance to make that one change, to get you past that.
Well, all the other standards are incorrect.
And I think you could have even at the time, I think that if Mr. Wallace had come in and he said, I can't do an isocontour
He
map.
did.
What do you need to know that that was supposed to give you? And you came up with another method that he could satisfy that requirement.
We tried, and he said we couldn't do
I
it.
don't think you'd have ended up in court.
Paul, we did that. And that's how we ended up giving him a waiver.
No, you,
Yeah, we did, Paula.
he never.
Charlie, you're here tonight. Did we not ask you if there's any other way you could do it? You told us no.
You're talking about the pre-development ambient contours?
Correct.
There is no
That's what
practical
I'm saying,
possible way to do
a
it.
method other than a map.
Paul, let him finish. Let him finish. He's
Right.
not.
So I know, because I just want to clarify, because we did go through this exercise with Charlie that week. I tried to convince him to do something that he wouldn't do, just so we could have compliance, because I realized after talking to Dave and talking to Charlie that it wasn't possible. So then I tried to fabricate something in my own mind that would work to try to settle it, but Charlie said he couldn't put a stamp on it. So once Charlie decided he couldn't put a stamp on it, that wasn't going to be acceptable to any of the people who didn't want it anyway. So it was going to be money spent for naught.
If you go way back, excuse me, if I could respond. If you go way back to before the ordinance was passed, Charlie pointed out that pre-development ambient ISO contours were impossible to do.
Right.
It was in the ordinance anyway, and then when it came time to do the pre-development ambient work, we put forward a written protocol on how to do pre-development ambient sound level measurements that were generally accepted within the scientific industry. That came before the planning board reviewed it, accepted it as the protocol under which we did pre-development ambient studies. It was a written protocol, and we did it that way, and it came forward. Later on, I think there were individuals, Paul and others, saying, how come you didn't do pre-development ambient ISO contours? It is physically impossible, and if you can do it 1 second after, 1 instant second after you could do it, even if you could do it, it just changed. It's impossible, makes no sense. Nobody else in the
And
world
that- and my
even
point
pretends
was,
to think that you can do that.
my point was, if that's one of the bigger problems you had, fix that. Why should we have to have Nancy Pelosi standing up here reading a big document and saying, just pass it, and then you can find out what's in it?
Because we know what's in it, and Nancy didn't know what was in it.
Well, you don't know what's in it.
Yeah, I do.
You haven't finished writing it yet.
And you're complaining about something that hasn't been finished yet.
Right, well, believe me, I know most of what's in it.
Well, this is the public hearing, and
Yeah, this is good to have this interchange.
Well, I agree with this, but it's, what I find amusing about this conversation is this is the same thing that I complained about years ago, and this one was the one that was dead set against it. No, we got to go with a package. I was always that you take your individual ordinances and you pass them. It's amazing how things turn around. Where now we're at a point that we have an ordinance that is not working on numerous areas, and it needs to be rewritten.
Rick,
Right, well, hang on a second, Paul.
No, I have to answer this, and then you can go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Rick, I came to the selectmen in May of 2009, I believe it was, one of those years right along there, and I said, Rick has made up the shoreland zoning to update it to the current state mandates. I think it's a great idea. I put it into a form for him, I brought him over the floodplain management, I said, let's just do these. Let's work on the others separately after that. And if you don't believe me, I'll produce the evidence for you, because I came to them and they said, no, we want to go on. And I said,
You also did the same thing in front of this group, and I remember the meetings that we had, so.
Last week, hang on you guys, because I actually covered this last week. Remember, actually, 2 weeks ago, I covered this because this is how we got to where we got on this ordinance is partially, I had a hand in it too, Rick, because at the time, you did, that's exactly what Rick said. And like I said, this is like a little bit of a repeat a few weeks ago when I brought this up for how we got to the type of ordinance that we got into, because Rick had advised us to do it all as individual elements, okay? And then Paula had been working on the comprehensive plan, and Paula has more of the planning perspective on things and wanted to write a comprehensive land use ordinance. And I supported Paula in that, and I didn't support you at the time, for that. All right, so there definitely was a divergence of opinions at the time. But one of the things this points out again, like Carol's talked about recently, is we get in these situations, where some of these projects, they take such a long period of time that people can't sustain interest in them. So when you started out with a comprehensive plan, my father-in-law was involved, and Ruth was involved, and there were a number of people involved. But at the end of the day, when we got to the end of the comprehensive plan, we were down to like 3 people meeting, and then, I got asked to come in and look at it, but by the time I looked at it, it was like, way past. But, Paula had done a lot of work on that thing, and a lot of effort into it, and that's how we got to where we are with this plan. You can sit down, Paula. I mean, this.
no, I was kidding.
Yeah. But so, there's definitely some advantages, like right now, having some of these issues that we're having. There would be some advantages to having the thing broken out. But the fact is, in 2009 or 2008, when we started to rewrite the thing, and Paul and I were on it together, and I forget a few other people, the year before Bruce started it, we already started down this road. And then Bruce came in after the fact, Bruce and Vern came in, and Gerald, you were on it way back too. So then Bruce and Vern came in later, and we kept going on this same flow. Now, to me, I think that we've tried, as far as the task force on wind group, if the task force on wind group had not been here, okay, we probably would have a weaker sound ordinance. So the thing that I find that is, it kind of bothers me a little bit, is we get taken to task for it, you don't listen to us. Well, that's not true, because we probably would be closer to what the DEP standard is if we didn't have a task force on wind, which is not a very good standard, as you can see from North Haven Island. On the flip side, we try to come into the middle here, we reduce the actual sound decibel levels for our sound standard lower, but we also have a smaller radius. But as it turns out, from looking at the slide earlier, the issue, really, the distance is the sound dissipates by the time you get to the distance. So, but we have this distance in there, just like Hassler calls it some sort of, he's called it codified, or I forget what his words were, but.
But do you recall, I did bring you, and I went to the selectmen and I said, I'm sick, I'm